All right, welcome everybody. It's 7 p.m. We'll go ahead and get started. We appreciate Adam being with us this evening for our first series, our first book study with the EQ intervention, shaping a self-aware generation through social and emotional learning. So tonight, Dr. Sines will go through the introduction and overview of the book, and then we will continue to meet every other week until we get through the book, and you'll have some additional information around the EQ intervention. Please know that today we are using Zoom meeting, which means that we are able to utilize your microphones during this session. We want you to participate. You can utilize your webcam if you prefer. It doesn't have to be on if that's your preference, but please know that you do have the ability to mute and unmute within meeting, which is different than some of the webinars that the Indiana IEP Resource Center hosts. So thank you all for being here. In addition, we have closed captioning if that's your preference this evening. So you can turn on the closed captioning by clicking the bottom toolbar and finding that closed captioning button if that's something that you would like to use. If you would prefer not using the microphone, please go ahead and use the chat feature and we'll go ahead and answer questions that way as well. We only have a short hour this evening, so I'm going to kick it over to Dr. Sines. Go ahead.
Awesome. Thank you. Here, you know what? I'm going to give myself a round of applause. So there you go. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being with me tonight. And I'm excited about this book study. From what I understand, we have three sessions together, and the goal is to kind of work through the content in these three sessions. This first session will be kind of an introduction and an overview. Next time we come back, we'll really be looking at self-awareness and self-regulation. What do I need to know about myself? And then how do I regulate myself as the teacher or as the adult working with students? And then the last session, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about, okay, so what does this mean for kids then? How do we teach them emotional literacy? So that's it in a nutshell, the big picture. So let me just say that we've got some folks from Texas representing here, and I'm excited about that. Ashley Jolly is on the Applied EQ team. Happy to have her. Ben Travis was really, really helpful developing the curricula. Her and Melissa were just rock stars with that, and Ben is with us tonight. We also have Kristen Shambera. Awesome. She and Ashley were key in developing our secondary curricula. And I think that's all of the folks from Texas that are representing. So everyone else, welcome, and it's great to be here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with, I'm going to give you a little projective here. I want to give you an easy question to answer to get the juices flowing here. So number one, I'm going to talk about today. These are questions for me. Why did I write the EQ intervention? I'll go through that. What are the main ideas of each chapter? I'll go through that and the overview, and then we'll end with you answering questions, or you asking questions for me. But here's the question I have for you. Or it's a projective. It's a finish the blank. One of my favorite times in the last 7 days was what? What was one? So go to the chat and let's see. One of my 2-hour nap, Teresa. I think you won, Teresa. You won the prize there. Florida Gators won. That's awesome. Oh, and you got your daughter home. That's awesome. Good for you. Lewis got to spend time with his parents. Yay. Visiting over the weekend. That's awesome. Beating the 8th grade teachers in wiffle ball. I wish I could have been there for that. These are great, y'all. Awesome. So let me go back up. Kristen, this is totally off topic, but is that the school where the guy proposed to his girlfriend after that trouncing loss that they had, or was that Florida?
It was probably Florida State.
Florida State. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks for letting me know. That's really important. So there you go. Okay, so thank you all for your responses there. Oh, hey, Jenny Severson in the house also. Awesome. She's watching her kids play sports this week. That was great too. Okay, y'all. Well, thanks for your responses. Let me go on with the PowerPoint. So here's the deal. The big picture. Hold on. Let me get the right camera. Big picture. There we go. Emotional intelligence for you in the classroom what it means is this. What's going on inside of me? How can I learn to pay attention to what's going on inside of me so that I can regulate it? It's me increasing my self-awareness and self-regulation. So what I want to do now, again, is I'm going to go back to the chat, and I want to spend a few minutes. And here's the way we want to think about this. Think about, so those of you who are teaching, my guess is you have a college degree or some equivalent, and you're a certified licensed teacher, instructor. But here's what I want you to think about. Think back to when you graduated from high school and you started college, whenever that was. Maybe you started college right out of high school. Maybe you were a non-traditional student and you came back later in life. You started a family or whatever it might be. But when you started college, there were probably things you did that were cringeworthy, things that you just didn't know about. So think about that. So I'll give you an example of one thing I did when I was a freshman in college, and I got financial aid. I got a Pell Grant, actually. And don't tell anybody I said this, but it's a true story. I went to the financial aid office and I got my Pell Grant, and it covered my tuition and my books or whatever. And I had some money left over. So I used the leftover money. There was a party that night, and I used the leftover money to buy a keg of beer. So, boo, right? So what does that story illustrate? Well, it illustrates many things, but one thing for sure is that at that stage in the game, I clearly had some growing up to do. There were clearly things about what was going on in my inner world that I wasn't aware of, and that I wasn't able to self-regulate. So think back to your when you first started college and some of the cringeworthy mistakes you made. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on some folks to see if you will be vulnerable and hop on the call and tell me. So Ashley, I think I pre-warned you about this one. So Ashley, you teach teachers at A&M, you and Kristen do. So Ashley, go back to your first year as a teacher and tell me some things that when you look back that you cringe, that you just like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I didn't know this about myself, and I was so whatever it might be. Can you think of anything?
My first year of teaching, I thought that they would just listen to me. And just because I said to listen. So I would go home saying, all I did today was gripe and gripe and gripe, and nobody had fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be fun, and you have to develop that relationship in order for them to respect you, to listen. Just because you're an adult, that doesn't mean you automatically earn respect.
So your MO was like, I'm walking in, they're going to know that I'm older than them, therefore respect will come naturally and we'll be good.
Yes, that doesn't happen.
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure that out?
Longer than it should have. Let's just say that.
Is that right? Okay, good. Okay. So Kristen, let me call you out. Think back to your first days of teaching. You are, what do you look back and say, oh my gosh, I just wish I would have known this about myself, my errors, and I wouldn't have done it, or I would have done something differently.
I would say kind of along the lines with Ashley, expecting respect right off the bat without earning respect. But also, I felt like yelling would be more effective than just talking to kids. And so it took me a good year to learn, like, if I would just talk to them, I would get a better response.
What was it about who you were that made you think yelling? What were you thinking that drove that behavior? What did you feel when you yelled that made you drive that?
I was frustrated. I mean, they just wouldn't listen. I was also the fourth teacher in December, so there was a lot of other stuff going on.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else want to jump in now? Anybody, Misty or Ann or Carrie or Elena or Jean, anybody at all want to jump in and just share with the group when you look back to your early, maybe even your student teaching, and you think, oh my gosh, I just had no clue. And this was a kind of a negative outcome of me not knowing myself. Oh, Elena, can you go?
Yeah, hi, Alana. So when I first started teaching, I had 16 students in applied skills, like a functional skills class, and I taught I learned a lot better strategies as I went on. So when I first started teaching, I was doing way too many worksheets. My kids, I couldn't write. So I've learned a lot, but I would wish I could go back. And while I learned, I figured it out. But at first I was doing too much of the same things. And so that was kind of a big thing, a big aha. And I realized that the students knew a lot more than I thought they did because I wasn't, teaching to their ability or their need.
So I did. You were like overworking then on your end?
I think so. I was, yes. I worked a little bit smarter after that, but I was giving, students that were visual learners, I wasn't reaching them yet, but I was trying to, I had 16 students with different, like lots of needs. And I was pulling myself the wrong way. I wasn't working as smart as I could have. So.
And was that coming from a feeling inside of you, or was that just sort of like, were you just anxious and you thought, man, if I just do a million different things, that'll calm my anxiety? Yeah,
I think so. I think I was just trying to reach everybody's different needs. And they were also different, but I wasn't honing in on exactly how to teach them. I think that comes with practice, obviously. Yeah. But I was new and I had a lot of different abilities in my classroom, and I learned as I went. But at first I was, stressed how I'm going to reach all of these kids with all these different needs.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for sharing, Alana. Okay. Anyone else? We'll give another minute or so. Okay.
I will.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Louis.
I'm Louis. Okay, so I had a break, but that's why it's like new again. But the first time, I actually kind of burnt out because I didn't give time for myself, and I didn't forgive myself. Like when I made mistakes, and this time around, I'm forgiving myself on like little things of like, oh, I could have did that better. I'm not as hard on myself.
Yeah,
and I'm giving myself time. Like one of my mentors, this time around was like, sometimes you got to remember to leave it there and go home and be, the family person or whatever.
I see.
And
so, Louis, you would just sort of like beat yourself up in your mind, like, man, I should have done this. Yeah. I could have done that. Why did I do this? And just overthink it.
Yes. And it really just, you're hard on yourself. You create burnout within yourself.
Oh, wow.
So that's why I had to have self-forgiveness. It's like, I don't know if anybody else does, but you look inward and you're beating yourself. I should have did this better or that better, instead of just saying next time.
Yeah,
we'll do this.
Yeah.
And so I learned that this time around is a little, is better because I'm forgiving myself, meaning just a different approach, I guess.
Yeah. Did you have any idea that was going on early on? Like, did your gut say like you're being too hard on yourself, or did you just have no clue?
Yes and no. Like I was aware, but I just stayed focused on the next task at hand. So I never gave myself that chance to forgive myself. Just, like, oh, I should have did this better. But you go to the next task, there's no healing. Like, no. So I dealt with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Liz. I appreciate your honesty, your transparency. Awesome. Anyone else want to just kind of share with the group what you've learned in your time?
I'll jump in. It's Jenny.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Jenny.
Hey, I just had to jump in because Louis, you just kind of really sparked something. That's what I did. I was in there. I was the last person in the parking lot, last person out, just trying to, I don't know, create this like perfect, idyllic, just overworking and over functioning. And why did I do that? Because I was 20 years old.
Wow.
And I thought, I cannot believe I am in charge of young people. And so thank you so much, Louis. You got me to share because I was in the same boat, man.
Yeah. Jenny, do you, if I could ask you a follow-up question, do you think your overperformance early on, did imposter syndrome have anything to do with that? Did you have this like gnawing feeling that somebody's going to figure out I have no clue what I'm doing, and so I just better like totally overcompensate?
Totally. And I had this, I've been able to trace this back. I was a kid that grew up in the 70s. Mm-hmm. And so I was the last kid in my family, and my mom just sent me to kindergarten when I was 4 years old. And I literally always felt behind. Like it would be like March and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting this, Mm-hmm. And then it would be like a new school year. So there was this underlying, like, you're behind.
Wow. Yeah.
That kind of, so I'm a senior in college and I'm, it's crazy. And then I remember I turned 21 my first year of teaching. And just felt like, wow, these young children, like I've got to like influence them in some profound way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in some ways it sounds like you lived with this sense of urgency that was just like cracking a whip behind you, like all the time.
All the time, man.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Jenny. So I'll let one more person go, and then I'll share. I shared this silly mistake I made, as an 18-year-old, buying beer with my Pell Grant. Don't tell anybody about that already. Okay. That's just what we say on Zoom stays on Zoom until it gets posted onto the internet. Okay. Anyway, I'll share mine in a minute, but anyone else want to share early on in your career, whether it was last year or 15 years ago, something you just didn't know about yourself that you wish you had known because it would have made your life easier?
Adam, I will share for Misty. She shared in the chat because
okay.
she said she thought that the geese would stop flying over, but they haven't. So she just typed it out. But she said that she got hired 5 days before the start of the year. And by the end of September, I mistakenly thought I would have it all figured out by the end of the year and would be a pro. But 15 years later, I'm still learning new things every day.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds like she had unreasonable expectations about what growth should look like. Okay, good deal. Well, yeah, so those are all very relevant. So let me share, what I wish I had known about my inner world when I look back at my first year as a school psychologist. For those of you who know my story, I grew up poor, brown, wrong side of the tracks, and just had a lot of deep-seated insecurities and feeling senses of inadequacy and, yada, yada. And so what happens in life often is that, for people like me who feel inadequate or less than, you think you can, if you just adorn yourself with enough books and degrees and titles and all of that, then finally you'll measure up, and so that's like this whatever you use to make yourself look presentable in some way socially. And I was that guy and still am on the wrong day, but I remember coming into Bryan ISD as my first job in the school district. And I was Dr. Signs, brand new Dr. Signs. And, I was kind of like Jenny and sort of what Lewis described as well, where I was just so scared that somebody was going to figure out that I was a fraud. I mean, I had big time imposter syndrome. And I just thought, oh gosh, somebody's going to kind of take a peek behind my PhD and figure out that I'm scared. I feel insecure. I feel inadequate. I feel less than. I'm not going to make this. And they're just going to figure out what it's going to be. It's going to be the scene out of The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy and the Tin Man and the lion, they sort of look behind the curtain and they say, what, it's you? You're this big thing, boo here, boo. Yeah. And so what I did, because I was so scared that somebody was going to peek behind the curtain and see me pulling all these strings, trying to make this Oz thing happen, was I just worked like a madman. I just worked long hours and had to have the right answer to every question all the time. And it burned me out. It absolutely burned me out. And I just knew that I wouldn't be sustainable. So that was me. And that was a mistake that I made early on. Did someone have a comment? Did somebody want to jump in on that? I heard something, but maybe not. Nope. Okay. All right. So back to this. So we've talked a little bit. The whole goal of the conversation so far has been to just talk about where we were early on in our careers and what we wish we knew, what we wish we had known about our inner worlds so that we could just identify it and regulate it to make ourselves more successful. In some ways, when we're not aware of ourselves internally, we end up working against ourselves in the worst case scenario. So back to the book and why I wrote it. This was the front line of mental health intervention in 2001. That's where I did my postdoc. That was at Bradley Hospital in Providence, Rhode Island. And that was the front edge of mental health intervention. I mean, that was state of the art 20 years ago. But if you fast forward to here's some data. This is before the pandemic. 20% of kids between the ages of 13 and 18 experience a severe mental disorder, and less than half of them are going to get treatment for that. And that was from the National Alliance on Mental Health in 2020. And again, that was before the pandemic. And these numbers are only more exaggerated. So what that means now is that where kids used to go to an inpatient psychiatric treatment, a facility for treatment, they're not doing that anymore. They're showing up to schools, which means that our classrooms are now the front line of mental health intervention. The federal and state laws don't mandate that kids have to receive intervention for their mental illness. It does mandate that they have to go to school. So many kids are emotionally dysregulated, experiencing adjustment disorders, anxiety, depression, ADHD, conduct disorder, whatever it might be. They're not getting treatment in an outpatient setting, but they are coming to school because the law says they have to come to school. And what that means, again, is that our classrooms are the front line of mental health intervention, which means by extension that the classroom teacher is sort of up in front of that, having to deal with all of that. And teachers are saying, wait, hold on, I was trained to be a teacher, not a mental health professional. And that's overwhelming, truly overwhelming. So these are, this is the insight that we have given the dynamic. The tools we have traditionally used in schools to manage student behavior, they're no longer adequate to address students' deeper emotional needs. And what I mean by that is, if you're a teacher teaching and you've got all these kids in your classroom that are emotionally dysregulated, that are having difficult times, whether they're in special ed or not, whether they have a behavior intervention plan or not, the tools that you have are basically sticks and carrots. So what can I do to bring pain to this student, to give them a negative, undesirable consequence to shape their behavior? And what can I do to give pleasure to the student? How can I entice them? And that's it. You have sticks and you have carrots. And so the sticks are like, I'm going to send you to the office. You're going to get expelled. You're going to get suspended. I mean, those are our major consequences, negative consequences. And then positive reinforcers are, well, maybe if I give you a sticker, maybe if I give you social praise, maybe if I compliment your work, maybe that will motivate you. But again, back to the PowerPoint here, the challenge is that those tools, they're just not effective anymore to address the students' deeper emotional needs. Those are what I call superficial, topical behavior management approaches. They manage behavior, but they don't get into the child's deeper world where all this dysregulation is happening. And I always say that if you can teach a child to manage their emotion, then behavior manages itself. You don't need behavior management when you're practicing emotional literacy. So that's the truth at a student level, is that when kids understand their inner world and regulate it, behavior manages itself. And the same thing is true for us as adults. When we as adults understand our inner world and our fears and our blind spots and our weaknesses and our biases and our insecurities, once we face those and confront them, we can regulate them. And then our behavior as adults manages itself in the classroom. Again, that is the insight and why I wrote the book. So let me stop right there. And Ben, Travis, I'm going to put you on the spot, man. And if you don't have an answer, then you still pass just for showing up. You get credit anyway just for showing up, right? So thanks. Yeah, even if you give me if you're not prepared to answer the question, it's no sweat. But I know that you've got extensive experience as an SEL coach and working with kids in public schools right now. So can you talk a little bit more about what you've seen, the distinction I make about punishment and rewards and how that differs from SEL in your opinion? Like, what's your experience of that been?
Yeah, I was talking to a teacher this afternoon, kind of almost while I was late getting here, because she is just kind of at the end of the rope on a lot of things already. And basically the summary of our conversation, which is one I've been having with the principal and assistant principal as well at the campus, is this teacher kept coming to me saying, I just don't know what consequence to use for this. And what do I do with this? And how do I get them to do this thing I need them to do? And I've tried to kind of apply some of the classic approaches, whether it's point sheets or take away recess, or we have this thing at our school called lonely lunch, where they have to sit by themselves during lunch. And so it's just like horrible
speech.
Well,
actually, I kind of want some lonely lunches, but that's
right.
Just,
it could be nice for the right kid. But
Adam would love a lonely lunch.
That
would be a reward for him.
That's right. Where I was at with this teacher, though, is and I said this to her, all these things that we're doing, they're going to get kids. Like, I can make a kid comply in your classroom. If you want me to come in and spend 30 minutes making the kid do the thing you want them to do, I can do that. And I'm going to walk away. And at the end of that student is not going to be able to do that independently. And you're not going to be able to make them do that, because I've used all of my relational skills, all of my tools to make that happen. And so what we're working on with that, what I ended up sharing with her today was restorative practices. And the way that conversation, embodying kind of more of a community-based approach, and you're trying to create kind of unity amongst you and the student and the students and each other, and help them understand what is at the core of this problem versus just what is the behavior that I need to see stop, is a way to kind of frame a conversation where you're starting to understand the student, and inadvertently they're understanding themselves and you as the teacher. And so I think, to me, that's the distinction, is starting to shift from a very intervention in the sense of like, this is a tool that I can give you to now go execute this thing, so that the student will stop doing the thing that you want them to do, or do more of the thing that you want them to do. And into more of a, how do we start to help teachers? To me, really, it is teachers first understand, what is your frustration? What's happening with you? Why are you struggling with this student so much more than that student? And then from there, jumping into, now, how do we help your students do that? And I had to tell her, like, this is the long-term game. So like, we will be at this for the rest of the year. Oh, wow. But I do think you're going to hand some third grade students up. They're going to be a lot more prepared to engage with those fourth grade teachers than they were with you. So I don't know if that gets to the heart of the question.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I love what you said, though, about restorative practice. I think many of us, when we hear that, we think, oh, that's what students do with each other. They mend relationships. But I hear you saying, no, this is what adults do with kids as well.
Yeah. And we had one today we have 3 teachers that are in conflict right now about how they're managing discipline on their team. And we had a circle with those 3 teachers as far as restorative circle, engaging that same way. So we're really trying to kind of buy into a practice that can kind of, if we expect kids to do it with each other, like you're saying, then you should do it with the kids, and teachers should do it with teachers, and families at some point, and all of that. So
So let me press into that, Ben, and I'm going to draw an analogy from my clinical practice. So early on, when I would work with kids, I would have a parent bring a child in and say, here's my child, they're depressed, we want you to undepress them, right? So it works that way. And so what I would do early on is work with the child, but then I figured out, well, gosh, it doesn't do me much good to work with the child if the parents are overwhelmed. So let me start working with the parents and ask, how are your resources? Are you taking care of yourself? Do you have a good support group? Things like that. And what would happen is when I would shift the conversation from the child and start working more with the parent, it was one of 2 things: either like, nope, stop. I'm not the identified patient. My kid is, so fix him. Don't go there. Or, oh my gosh, thank you so much. No one attends to me, and this is wonderful. So, you were talking, I love the questions you were asking the teacher, like, well, hey, wait, how is this about you? And why does that kid jerk your chain, but that one doesn't? What is your experience when you work with teachers? Do most of them say, no, this isn't about me, I want you to fix the kid? Or, what kind of response do you typically get when you start asking teachers to look within?
Yeah, that's honestly been one of the hardest parts of my role is there's no training for it, but you have to be able to really read a person before you walk in the room. And so I was on multiple campuses last year and having to really do that in an expedited fashion. But now I'm at one campus working with one group of teachers. And I would say I see that most people, one thing I've started asking teachers is basically, are you okay? So if there's been a major behavior incident or something like that, my current assistant principal made me realize that I spent 6 years working in a behavior intervention classroom and had all kinds of things happen. I was injured, kids were injured, all that stuff. And not once did an administrator ever come into my classroom and say, are you okay? How are you handling this? And so realizing that's kind of what I lead with. And I've learned that lets that teacher start to kind of articulate their experience. And then we can kind of get into more of, okay, so now why do you think this kid is the one that's making you so frustrated? And I think they tend to be open to it when it doesn't feel like the next question is going to be, well, why didn't you do that? Or why aren't you doing this thing we told you to do? Or, you know, they're so used to kind of the primer question being just so we can get to the point. And I've really tried to do a better job than that kind of the shortcut there, and instead trying to take kind of the long road in that conversation.
So it's what I hear you saying is that it's very important up front for you to give the teacher permission to be human, to be imperfect, to be a need haver instead of the need meter all the time.
Yeah,
is that
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. See, I threw a curveball at you and you knocked it out of the park as I figured you would. Round of applause for Ben. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, so let's get back to the PowerPoint here. So, you know, again, this idea that the tools we've used in the past, the sticks and the carrots, they're not going to get it. You know, we need something different. And that new thing is SEL, social emotional learning. In my mind, SEL starts with self-awareness, as I've talked about before, me knowing what are my blind spots? What are my triggers? What are my insecurities? And once I'm aware of them, I can manage them, which is great. This centers me. This makes me ready to go. And then I, through empathy, can know what you're thinking. And then with my relationship skills, I can connect with you. And when we come together, when two people or a classroom or any group of people come together with this in place, we make good decisions. We live the best life that we can live. So again, that's just a little rationale for why SEL is so important and why it represents such a different tool than what we've traditionally used. Here's another way to think of it. It starts with self-awareness. And next week, we're going to dig heavy into self-awareness. You're going to know your personality. You're going to know your stress. And we're going to give a roadmap to help you then regulate your personality and regulate your stress. And then the next part, which we won't get to, is empathy and social skills. When all those things are added together, we make good decisions. We live our best lives as teachers, as spouses, as parents, as children, as siblings, as neighbors, as exes. I mean, whatever role we have, when we're practicing this at an adult level, then we're going to live our best life. So what are the main ideas of each chapter? I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but I'm just going to kind of go through each chapter. So this is a direct quote that I wrote in the book, being the Dr. Phil realist that I am. So let me share this quote with you. This is from page 13. Forgive my bluntness, I say, but I suspect that not everyone is between these covers by choice. Well, I have good news for you, my friend. You can just get down and dirty. So at the end of each chapter, you'll see this thing called the down and dirty, and it's basically like the Cliff's Notes, the shortcut version for each chapter. So you can really read the whole book in about 5 minutes. And I get it, man. You've got a bazillion things going on, and it's not like you can say, well, let me carve out 5 hours today to read chapter 1. I mean, that's not going to happen. So if you want to just go to the end of the chapter, the down and dirty gives you the information real quick. So just keep that in mind if you find yourself in a bind. The next thing I want to tell you about the book is that this SEL in real time, at the end of every chapter, you'll see this. And this is just a section with questions you can consider, that you can throw around. And we'll come back to those as well, or you can come back to those. So just a couple of things I wanted to keep you in mind. So let's talk about the main ideas. The introduction, I just talk about why I wrote the book. Some people named Jordan Peterson don't even think that emotional intelligence is a real thing. It's considered like this crazy, wacky stuff. And those guys that believe in emotional intelligence are idiots. So I'm not saying I'm not an idiot. I have evidence to prove that I am in many ways, but I do think that emotional intelligence is actually a thing. So I talk about the rationale for that. And here's a question to think about. For those of you who like me have been in education for more than 5 years, I've been in the field for 20 plus years. You just hear so many things come and go. And it's like, oh, good Lord, and so much of it is junk, and I travel a lot and I teach a lot. And I've been in, since July, I've probably been in 7 or 8 different states. And I share the stage with a lot of people at a lot of conferences. And so much of that stuff is just, they're just edutainers, is what we call them. They just want to get up there and tell jokes and be funny and make you laugh. And that's fine. That's fine if you're a comedian. And if you're saying, I'm here to make you laugh, teacher, because your job sucks and you need to laugh, that's great. That's perfectly fine. But don't try to sell me a product or a theory with your comedy. Just be a comic and don't create any junky product with it. So anyway, I'm getting all worked up. So we know things come and go. And SEL 3 years ago was the up and coming thing. Everybody was talking about SEL because it was a hot topic. But I'm here to tell you that it's not just a hot topic. It's a necessity now. I think the pandemic has revealed that. And there's a ton of data that prove that it's a valid intervention. So that's the introduction. Chapter 1, I just talk about the degree to which we're going to be life givers or life suckers. And we have been measuring EQ for well over 50 years. Let's go to chapter 2, self-awareness. And this is where we'll jump in tomorrow. We'll take a lot of time to look at, your personality, your stress, and then what you can do to regulate those things. If maybe there are certain emotions that you were taught to avoid. And then another question to consider is how many personality tests have you taken, and did they seem to describe you lately? I'm going to give you the link to take our personality test online, the EASL, and it tells you about your personality and it tells you about your vulnerability to stress. And I'm actually, you know what? I'm going to type that in. If I go to the chat, I'm going to put take the EASL.com. Let me. Bear with me one sec. I'm going to make sure I have the .com/EASL. Okay. .com/EASL. Okay. So there's the website in the chat. It says taketheeasl.com/EASL. And you can, between now and our next session, I'd love you to go online. It takes about 20 minutes to take this. And so let me see if I can pull it up on my browser here. Just one sec. And this tool is it's what we use when we do our PD with faculty with teachers at a campus level. So this is what the web page looks like. Let me maximize that. So if you go here, https://taketheeasl.com EASL. That's the website. And all you do is you're just going to fill in your name, your birth date. There's a little bit of information here. And then it's just a bunch of questions or a bunch of descriptors, explore. And you're going to say, that's very inaccurate of me. I'm not an explorer, or that's very accurate of me. Imaginative. No, I'm not imaginative. Or yes, I'm very imaginative. Progressive. I'm not progressive. I am. So these are all personality factors. And then when you get down to the very bottom, after you take them all, you get number 80, unreasonable, yes or no, then you click submit. And what's going to happen is it's going to email you a report with your results. And when we come back tomorrow, we're going to talk about your report and the results of that. So I want to just plug that for next week. And again, remember, the core tenet, the starting point, the entry point of adult SEL, of emotional intelligence, it's self-awareness and self-regulation. So this is going to be a great way for you to increase that. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Let me minimize. So that's chapter 2. How can we know ourselves? Chapter 3 is a discussion. Of how we can regulate ourselves. Your personality, the deal with your personality, what we'll find next week is that your personality style, it's one of 5 things. There are one of 5 variables that you slide on. And depending on where you land on those variables, you may be really, really good at some things, and you may be really, really not good at some things. So for example, one personality style is called, or dimension is called agreeableness. So people either love cooperation or they love competition. That's one way to consider that. If you love cooperation, and most elementary school teachers are highly agreeable, they love cooperation. You're going to be interpersonally accessible. You're going to be warm. You're going to be friendly. You're going to be really good at relationships, and the kids are going to love you for that. The problem is that you fear conflict. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and you become a doormat, and you can't set boundaries when kids need boundaries set. So that's what, self-awareness and self-regulation means. It's me knowing my personality and saying, based on my personality, what am I going to be good at and what am I not going to be good at? So chapter 3 is about how we regulate ourselves once we figure ourselves out. And then when you take the personality test, you'll see on there, it says, does your personality at work differ from your personality at home? I know mine does. I'm much more agreeable at work than I am at home, much to my wife's dismay. But when you take the test, put yourself in your work shoes. Who are you at work? Okay, so that's the chapter 3 is about self-regulation, and again, we'll dig deep into this. Chapter 4 is about empathy. Empathy is the root of harsh judgment. A lack of empathy is the root of harsh judgment and self-righteousness. Communication is a big part of empathy. So you'll look at that. We won't dig too much into empathy next week, though. Chapter 5 is about social skills. Just some basic ideas about conflict resolution, because we were just having this conversation in my clinic. So wouldn't you, so I always wondered, I don't know if you remember that show Cops, what you gonna do, bad boy, when they come for you. One of my friends is a cop, and he says they love it. And I always wondered, do cops love that show or hate it? And from what he said, they love it, Well, along those lines, wouldn't you think that a group of 30 people who are licensed mental health professionals, wouldn't you think that they'd be really good at conflict resolution? I mean, I know I would, until I, realized the dynamics in my clinic of 30 providers. Like, we suck at conflict resolution, and we are so dysfunctional, and we know all the answers. We know in theory how to resolve conflict, but we just suck at it because we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. We don't want to piss anybody off. And, it's ridiculous. So anyway, when I talk about social skills, I really hone in on conflict resolution because that's a big part of it. Yeah, that's right. Marcy, thanks. When I say you won't come back tomorrow, I won't come back tomorrow. You come back Wednesday, October 13th. It's late and I need a beer. Chapter 6, moving right along. What is the equipped classroom? Here I just talk about, and this is going to be where we land for our third session. And that's really where I talk about, okay, so I get it, Adam. I'm the adult. I need to be self-aware. I need to be self-regulated. I need to use some attachment language. I need to be a secure base in my classroom. I got it. But what do I do with kids now? I'm good. I really am good. But what do I do with my kids? Well, in the third session, we're going to talk just very, very strategically about what it actually looks like to teach emotional literacy, help kids understand their emotions and what to do with them. And then chapter 7, the main point there is just this idea that I'm the living intervention for all students. And what that means is, yes, we can do an SEL curricula. We can watch videos, we can have lessons that are printed out, and all of that stuff is good and helpful and necessary, and so much more effective than sticks and carrots, than traditional behavior management. But at the beginning of the day, in the middle of the day, and at the end of the day, all day, the life that I live in front of kids, that's really the intervention. They're really looking at me and how do I conduct myself as an adult to answer questions about, is the world a safe place? Can I find trust in the world? Can I find love? Can I find connection in the world? It's my life. It's not a printed book or a video. It's how am I living my life? And so at the end of the book, I just sort of frame it all up and say, remember that we are living this out every day. And so it's just sort of a call to action. The statement, the question there says, what would Abilene ISD's impact be if we raised a generation of socially and emotionally intelligent students who grew up to be emotionally intelligent bosses, employees, spouses, and parents? So Abilene is a mid-sized, by Texas standards, district that I'm working with. Our whole team has been there to work with them on the easel, to do leadership development, working in the classrooms. And I just posed that question to the district, like, hey man, what if we casted a vision to be these kinds of people that grew these kinds of students? Can you imagine the difference we could make? So there you go. So that's chapter 7 in a nutshell. So that's it. So let me stop there. It's about 6:43. I see that other question. Adam, do you have any free stuff you can help us to manage our stress? I do, actually. I'll show you with that in a minute. But what questions do you have for me about anything that I've covered so far, or questions either about next week or the following, or not next week? Session number 2 and session number 3, I'm going to stop saying day or week. It's just whenever it happens. I'm going to wake up one day and it'll be on my calendar. You're going to wake up one day, it's going to be on your calendar, and we're all going to know that we meet here, right? So there you go. But what questions do you have? Angela just knocked the easel out. Round of applause. Waiting for the email results. You get the Overachiever Award for tonight. I'm so proud of you, Angela. Good job. Okay. Anyone else? Any other questions, comments, or insights? Okay. All right, here's what we're going to do. Somebody is going to score. You know how much I love to give these away. Starbucks gift card. Somebody's going to score a free Starbucks gift card. Don't get too excited because it's only $25, and that's basically just a down payment on a venti iced coffee. So don't freak out. So what I want you to do is I want you to be bold, and we're going to do like in the old days. When I say the old days, I'm talking about my childhood. So back in the day, man, we had this thing called AM radio. I can tell by your faces, you're all too young to know what AM radio was, but it was how we listened to music 100 years ago. And so you would call into the station and the DJ would say, all right, if you're the first caller, you're going to win 4 tickets to the Led Zeppelin concert. You don't even know what Led Zeppelin is. 100 years ago, there was this really, really good rock band called Led Zeppelin. And if you scored tickets to Led Zeppelin, like the chicks would dig you, I'll put it that way, right? So we'll just say that. So anyway, this is kind of that thing. This is AM radio-ish. I'm the DJ, and you're going to call in. I'm going to put my number in the chat. And so the first person to call in, you're going to win the Starbucks gift card. But you have to let me ask you some questions about how your year is going so far. So that's the deal. So here we go. 979-571-4606. That's the number to the studio. First caller. Let's see if we can get somebody to call in. Oh, we got a call coming in already. I love it. Hello, this is Adam. Who is this?
It's me.
Who's me?
Hold on. Let me mute this.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, it's Angie.
Round of applause. Good job. Good job.
Overachiever. See that?
That's great. Yeah. Did you lower your volume?
Hold on. Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Better.
Awesome. Okay, so congratulations, you're the big winner. Before we, tonight, let me do this. Let me go back to the PowerPoint, and I want to show you what to do. You'll see my email address down there at the bottom. It says adam@adamsigns.com.
Sure.
Yeah, email me and say, hey, Adam, I completed the easel, and I talked to you on the phone, and I'm writing you to give you my address, and this is where you can send my gift card to.
Excellent. It's National Coffee Day too. So Starbucks is filling up 20 ounces, man.
Oh, how apropos. I love it. That's great. So how's your year been so far? Be honest.
You know what? It's been very, very stressful.
Yeah.
It's my first year coming back to teaching. I really didn't think that I was ever going to come back to teaching. Wow. I was at that point.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened that COVID hit. I lost my job. The only thing I had to fall back on was my master's. And so now I'm back in the classroom, and it's a different scenario. I don't think I was ready for it the first go round. And I think now I'm a little bit more prepared.
Oh, good. And what grade level are you teaching?
7th grade, special education, direct taught ELA.
7th grade. God bless you. That's awesome. ELA. That's great. Good deal. Well, listen, congratulations on being the first caller. I actually don't have tickets to the Led Zeppelin concert, but I do have Starbucks for you. So again, just shoot me an email and we'll get this out to you in the mail tomorrow. All right.
Thank you so much. You've been amazing. I appreciate everything that you've said and showed us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Good job. Take care.
Bye.
All right. So at least one of you are glad that you logged on tonight, because you're going to get some free coffee out of it. And we'll do this again next week. Okay. So that's it, folks. That's all I got. And I appreciate y'all. I really do. And I just cherish your time here. And I really want to make this worth your while. So when we come back, we're going to talk about our personality. We're going to talk about our stress, and we're going to talk about how to regulate those things. All right. Well, that's all I got. Marcy, did you have anything that you want?
I will just wrap up to clarify. We're not meeting tomorrow. We're not reading next week, but we are meeting Wednesday, October 13th. We would love to have you all back. Yeah. Please know that if you are unable to make one of these sessions, please don't think you're unable to participate. We can send out the recordings to those who register, and we'll get you that information so that you can participate the following week and be a part of this book study with us. So we will not evaluate tonight's session. We'll wait to the conclusion of the book study and evaluate then. So just enjoy your evening and read those chapters for next week.
Yep. And I'll say this, a teaser for next meeting, not next week or not tomorrow, but next meeting. The giveaway is I'm going to up the ante. And so it'll be even better than $25 Starbucks gift card. So the prizes will keep, this is like, let's make a deal, Monty Hall, again, to date myself. So the prizes will get better. You'll want to come back.
Perfect. And I did have a request to send out the registration again in the chat, which I will do that now. So you'll have that information as well. And this is the same link that we will use for subsequent sessions, but we will email that out to those who registered again, just so that you don't have to hunt down the email that you received today for that. We'll get that to you.
Yeah.
All right. Let us know if you need anything else. Thank you. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you.
Have a good one.
All right.